Okay, welcome back, you guys, from lunch. Nice to see everyone back. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. We're going to start with meditation to get us started for our afternoon session. I'm just going to do the chanting. Then there's going to be the guidance. There'll be a period of time of quietness, and then we'll come out of that with some more chanting. And then I'm going to finish up the Eightfold Path in the afternoon so you guys can learn the entire path. So if you'd like to join for meditation, you're welcome to join along in the chanting, and then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Otang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savakasangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Develop a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโอตังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเถรโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. All right. So we're going to continue learning the Eightfold Path. Remember, this is the core central teaching of the Buddha. Everything that he taught comes back to this. And this is how you're going to not only get to enlightenment, but those harmonious relationships as well. Because what you're going to start learning here is the moral conduct and the mental discipline section. The way that you interact with others is going to produce a certain result. And if you're not understanding the natural laws that the Buddha taught and you don't have the wisdom of that, you will function in ways that are unwise. But when you learn these teachings, when you learn these natural laws, when you reflect to be able to see it's true and you start practicing it, you'll see that it actually works, because you're going to start seeing that the condition of your mind in your life is going to improve. You'll start seeing your relationships becoming more and more harmonious. And this is how you'll know that this is the truth and that it's actually wisdom. So we've already explored the wisdom section, which is just intellectually understanding right view and that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And then the right intention, understanding that there's the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. But now we're going to build on that foundation, and we're going to add to it the moral conduct section and the mental discipline. I'm going to be teaching you right speech, right action, and right livelihood here. Whenever you're learning things like moral conduct from the Buddha, it's important to understand what he's exposing you to and helping you to learn is the natural law of karma, this cause and effect, or this action and result. Sometimes people think this is something mystical or magical, or that it's about punishments and rewards, or that there's some being that's overseeing this and controlling who gets what, or, some entity. This isn't actually true. It's literally a sequence of events that whenever you make a decision, you're going to experience the results of those decisions that you make. And when you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome karma, or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you will experience unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. And you need to be able to see that each thing that you're experiencing is coming from decisions that you're making. Because if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, and you'd rather that thing not occur, All you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if you do things like think it's good luck or bad luck based on what you're experiencing, or that it's destiny or fate, or somehow your life is predetermined, or that there's a being of God or some entity called the universe controlling what you experience, or that it's other people that are determining what you experience, then you're stuck. You can't actually change anything about your life. The natural law of karma is very empowering, because when you come to see that it's your own decisions that are leading to any result that you're experiencing, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results. So if I was walking down the beach and there's wind blowing in my face and I'm kicking up the sand, and this sand is now blowing in my face, well, if I think, this is good luck or bad luck, or this is destiny or fate, or this is God or some entity called the universe, or this is other people that are causing this, now I never make different decisions. I don't cultivate wisdom. I don't make different decisions, and I keep experiencing the same results. So you need to be able to see that each thing that you're experiencing is coming from decisions that you're making. And if you're having trouble seeing that, ask yourself these questions. Who chose where you're sitting right now? Who chose the clothing that you're wearing? Who chose the hairstyle that you have? Who chose whether or not you ate breakfast this morning? Who chose your friends that you spend time with? Who chose the location where you live? Who chose the occupation that you have? Right? We could go on and on and on. You can see the answer here is you. You're making all these decisions. And when you lack wisdom of these natural laws, you will tend to make unwise decisions. So that's why it's important to cultivate wisdom. So I'm going to help you to be able to see what the Buddha is teaching you with this moral conduct, but just understand it's not rules. It's not commandments. He's helping you to see what are the wise decisions that are going to lead to wholesome results in your relationships and in your day-to-day life and in the way that your mind functions. It's your life, your decisions, and your results. Okay? So here's what he teaches on right speech. He says, in what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So remember, the Eightfold Path is the path to enlightenment. That's what you learned in the Four Noble Truths. And what you learned in the Four Noble Truths is that you need to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection. Well, each one of these speeches is actually based in craving, right? When we're lying, if you can remember as kids, we were lying. Well, there was something you wanted, and you felt like if you told the truth, you weren't going to get it. So the mind lied in order to be able to try to get what it wants. But the problem is that people discover our lies, and now it damages our relationships, both personally and professionally. Because if you get used to lying, the people around you are going to discover those lies. And it's all coming from craving, desire, attachment. So if you're going to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, you need to eliminate the lying. And then now this will produce more wholesome results in your day-to-day life, because people can see you to be a truth speaker, dependable, reliable, someone that they can trust. And now you'll see both personally and professionally, you'll have a lot more success. Then sometimes an individual might have slander. Slander is like gossip, where you're damaging someone's reputation, and there's a craving there. There's a mind longing, yearning. It wants to look good in front of other people, and it thinks like, hey, if I diminish other people, if I make them look bad, then I'll look good. But actually, it's just the opposite. The more that you talk bad about others, it actually makes yourself look bad. The mind kind of thinks like, it's walking into a dark room and everybody's got a candle, and the mind thinks, if I put out everybody else's candle, my candle will shine brighter. So let me put out everyone else's candle. That's what the mind's doing. There's a craving there. So you need to get to the point where you're not damaging people's reputation through gossip and slander. Because the natural law of karma here is at the height of this, if you're gossiping and slandering, you can be killed. You can be murdered. Remember, the teachings of the Buddha aren't explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is, and he's showing you this cause and effect. This is why you'll see like investigative reporters who they're investigating some politician or some famous person. They might get on the news, damage this person's reputation. Next thing you know, they end up dead. I'm not saying what's right or wrong about that situation. I'm just showing you the cause and effect, that if you gossip and slander, people are going to want to cause harm to you because you're causing harm to them. At the very least, if you're gossiping and slandering about people, well, when you get used to gossiping and slandering with this group of people, when your back is turned and you're over here doing something else, what do you think those people are going to be doing? They're going to be gossiping and slandering about you, right? Because you got them used to gossiping and slandering, and now they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So if you're not interested in people gossiping and slandering about you, and you're looking to get rid of craving, desire, attachment, you're going to need to eliminate slander. Then there's harsh speech. This is your tone, tempo, and word choice, the way you speak. If you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you'll be harsh with your tone, tempo, and word choice. But in that situation, you're damaging your relationships, like with your parents, with your siblings, with your life partner, people like this, your children. If you're harsh and hostile and bitter, it's going to damage your relationships. So you need to speak with gentleness, where you pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And some of you guys speak more than one language, so you're going to need to pay attention in each one of those languages, how to speak in a way that's warm and gentle, that you're paying attention to your tone, tempo, and word choice. You know, in the Thai language, we have all kinds of ways of talking that we can show the person that we're being polite and respectful to them. And other languages probably have these things too. In English, you know, we use things like yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, or thank you, or please, or things like that to show that we're being polite and respectful. So you're going to need to look at each one of the languages that you speak and find those word choices that help people see that you're being gentle and polite and respectful with them. And now that's going to help you to speak gentle, and it'll improve what you're experiencing in your mind, and it'll improve what you're experiencing in your relationships with people. It'll help you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. Then there's frivolous speech. We also call this idle chatter. What this is unbeneficial and unpurposeful speech. If you've ever been this type of person, or if you ever have been around this type of person, they might just be talking and it's like yada 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 yada. It's not really a conversation. They're broadcasting to you, right? You're just like, oh my gosh, when is this person going to stop talking? They've been talking for like 20 minutes straight without even taking a breath, it seems like, right? So this is called frivolous speech, where it's unpurposeful, it's unbeneficial. There's an underlying craving there that the person just wants to talk and they want people to hear them speak. So you're going to need to eliminate frivolous speech, because when you speak this way, you're going to be uninfluential. People aren't going to be interested in talking with you. They're going to just tune you out because they're disinterested in doing all that work to sit there and listen to you all that time. It's not really a conversation anymore. So this is the top level of right speech, where you eliminate lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. But then there's a more detailed teaching around speech that's going to help you to be able to really fine tune this and get to the point where you're having wonderful relationships with everybody around you. It's called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Here, the Buddha teaches you to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Speaking at the proper time is to make sure that you're not interrupting people. If you're interrupting people, there's a craving there. The mind can't wait its turn to talk. The mind's longing, yearning, and you're just like, I just can't wait to talk. I want to jump in there, and you can't wait for your turn, and the mind's just jumping in. And now this person, they're going to experience potentially frustration or agitation, and they think that it's you that's causing that, when in reality it's their own mind, but nonetheless it's going to strain your relationships. So you'd like to wait your turn. The other part of speaking at the proper time is to make sure your mind's prepared to talk. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're agitated or annoyed, it's not the proper time to talk. The only thing that's going to come out is your hostility and bitterness. It's going to damage your relationship. And then you also would like to make sure it's the proper time for the other person. If the other person's angry and frustrated, it's not the proper time to talk. You would like to refrain from talking at that time and speaking, because it's not going to have anything beneficial that's going to happen. So you need to make sure you're speaking at the proper time. Speaking the truth is something we already discussed up here about lying. Speaking gently is also something we covered up here, paying attention to the tone, tempo, and word choice, right? You need to speak gentle in all situations. Speaking beneficially is also something we talked about up here. This is speaking clear and concise and precise, being purposeful and beneficial when you speak. It's not about the topic that you're talking about necessarily. It's about the method of speaking, that you're not interested in speaking in ways that makes it really hard for people to understand you. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so hard to understand that person. You would like to speak beneficially with the purpose, with clarity, with conciseness. Then you'd like to wrap all of this in a mind of loving kindness. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. The opposite of loving kindness is inner hate. If you speak with inner hate, it's going to damage your relationships. It's going to produce unwholesome results for you, or unwholesome karma. So this is called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And here, this is something that you're not interested in believing. You need to cultivate the wisdom to independently verify this for yourself. The way that you do this is you move from the intellectual learning that I just shared with you into reflection. Start reflecting on this. Look at situations where your conversations didn't go well, where it ended in unwholesome ways. You can see that you and or the other person wasn't speaking at the proper time. Maybe you weren't speaking the truth, or gentle, or beneficially, or you weren't speaking with a mind of loving kindness, and that's why it didn't go well for you. But then also look at conversations that have gone well, because you've had plenty of conversations that have gone well, and you'll see that you and the other person were speaking with these 5 factors, that you were speaking at the proper time. It was true, it was gentle, it was beneficial, and it was with the mind of loving kindness, and that's why it went well, because these natural laws are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. So this is called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. You'd like to practice this at all times. It's going to be hardest for you in situations where you're really close to people, like your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children. That'll be the most challenging because that's where your strongest cravings, desires, attachments are. But in this particular course, there's a class that I'm going to teach that's going to help you understand how to eliminate your attachment to the people who are closest to you. Because as long as you have that attachment, it's going to be really hard for you. And then also, by the time we get to the mental discipline, it's going to help you understand how to practice this right speech more closely. So the Buddha referred to this as right speech. Okay. We might think about this as right communication because there's more ways than speaking. During his lifetime, it was just speech. Where now we have text messages, emails, voicemail, social media. We have many ways of communicating. So for example, if you went into a job interview and you spoke with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, you might knock it out of the park. They might be like, oh my gosh, I would like to hire this person. But then when they check your social media and they see hostility and bitterness, you're probably not going to get the job, right? So that's why you'd like to think of this as right communication. So for example, like say you're really angry and frustrated and you go over to your keyboard and you're pounding on your keyboard to send out an email. Well, you're not communicating at the proper time. It's the improper time to be communicating. It's just hostility and bitterness coming out of your mind. So instead of hitting save, which is going to send that bitterness out into the world, instead of hitting send and sending that bitterness out into the world, hit save instead of send, right? So now you can come back maybe 3 hours later, a day or 2 later, look at that email and decide, does it really make sense for you to send that out? Okay. So these are the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. In this book, if you guys end up getting a version of this, I've gone in detail with these 5 factors, helping you to understand with examples of exactly how to use this, because you can do a lot of harm with your speech. Between now and the time that you dial this in closer and closer, something that you can keep in mind is to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. You're going to ultimately need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech and dial that in closely. But there's going to be some situations where you can't quite remember as you're building up your wisdom. And that's where you need to remember, speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. Because if you're on the phone with your mom and you feel this anger coming up, you're not going to be like, Mom, hold on a second. I need to check the book. I know there's these 5 factors and there's something I need to learn in here. And I can't talk right now. Hold on a second. Right? You're not going to be able to do that. You're in the heat of the moment. You're actually having a conversation with your mom and you can't look at your book. Well, eventually this will be so ingrained in your mind that you'll just know it. You'll know what the 5 factors are. But in between now and then, just remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. That'll really help you. But ultimately, you need to learn the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Then there's something called right action. This is the 4th step or the 4th factor on the Eightfold Path. Here's the words of the Buddha. In what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So here he's giving you 3 really big, impactful actions that you could cause harm with your bodily actions. And if you cause harm, harm's going to come back to you. Remember, you can't cause people discontentedness, but you can cause them harm. You can cause harm to their physical body, to their material possessions, or their reputation. And if you cause harm, harm's going to come back to you. So these are 3 really big, impactful ones, but he's not giving you an exhaustive list here, right? Notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face, right? But if you understand this step and this factor, you know that's unwise. Because if you punch someone in the face, the natural law of karma is they're probably going to punch you back, or they're going to pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family are going to come attack you, right? So you understand that's unwise. So he's just giving you 3 impactful ones. Notice he didn't say like, it would be unwise to drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet. Well, 2,500 years ago, they didn't have airplanes, right? So he couldn't have given you an exhaustive list. But these 3 impactful ones, he gives you more details on these in a teaching called the 5 precepts. This is something that I teach in a lot of the other programs where he goes into detail on these things. And he explains these in much more detail. Because when you look at this, refraining from sexual misconduct, you're like, well, what is that? Right? Well, in the 5 precepts, he explains it in detail. He talks about having sex without consent. He talks about having sex with minors, having sex outside of existing relationships that you're in, things like this. He never includes same-gender relationships as sexual misconduct because there's no harm. There's 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex. And if you understand the universal truth of impermanence, there's never been a time in human history where everybody had sex with the opposite gender. It just never happened. Ever since the beginning of humanity, people have been having sex with the same gender or in the opposite gender, both, right? That if everybody had sex with the opposite gender, that would be permanence. And we don't live in that world. So the Buddha understood that 2,500 years ago. So if you or somebody you know has the same gender relationship, there's no harm. You're not causing any harm. Other people might get angry when they see you in a same gender relationship, but that's their craving. They're craving permanence in that situation. So there's more details on this that you'll find in the 5 precepts. That's in chapter 7 in this book. And I go into detail on all of this. And I also teach it so you can find videos and podcasts and things like this related to this topic. So there's more detail here that you're going to need, but understand that you're not interested in causing harm with your bodily actions in the way that you navigate in the world. Then there's something called right livelihood. This is how you choose to sustain your life. If you choose to sustain your life off of causing harm to others, harm will come to you. So here's what the Buddha says. He says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. So here he just says something very general, very broad, because it's other parts of his teachings that he goes into detail about this livelihood. Because you would like to be able to sustain your life in an occupation and acquire resources in a way that doesn't cause harm to others. If you're causing harm to be able to sustain your own life, that harm is going to come back to you. So what I'm going to teach you is what's called the first fold of purification. I'm going to help you to understand how to get to a point where you're not causing harm through your livelihood. So here, the Buddha has this teaching where he describes 5 livelihoods that would cause harm if you did any of these livelihoods. Business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. And you can independently verify this because remember, you're not interested in believing anything. Let me show you how to do this. Let's just say that I had a job of selling substances that cause heedlessness. Let's just say I'm standing on the street corner selling crystal methamphetamine and heroin into the community, right? Well, if I'm doing this, I'm causing harm to the community. These people are getting addicted to the substance. They're going out and stealing to bring me money. They're actually selling their body to bring me money. And now I'm causing harm in the community. Well, standing on the street corner selling substances, I'm very likely to get beat up. I can get murdered. I can get robbed. I can get arrested, right? I can get addicted to these substances myself. This is the natural law of karma. It's nobody controlling what I experience. It's the results of my decisions that are leading to these things that I'm experiencing. This is my unwholesome karma, that I can be killed, I can be murdered, I can get beat up, I can get robbed. That's all the results of my decisions, right? So the natural law of karma is functioning at a much higher level than human laws, because most places in the world, it's illegal to stand on the street corner and sell crystal methamphetamine and heroin. Not everywhere, but some places it's actually legal to be able to do this. Most places it's illegal. So we're not talking about human laws. We're talking about a natural law of karma. This natural law functions at all times, and it functions perfectly. Human laws, they're prone to error and mistakes because they're created by human beings. These are the laws of society. But this natural law of karma isn't functioning based on human laws. So for example, where I grew up, which is the USA, the government wouldn't arrest me if I chose to be a cashier at a liquor store. They're not going to come and arrest me. But if you understand the natural law of karma and what the Buddha is teaching you, it's very unwise to work in a liquor store, because these are the places that get robbed. People come in and they hold you up with a gun and they want your money, or they're going to steal the alcohol and they're going to steal the liquor, right? Or they're going to beat you up. In some places, they even get murdered, right? During the course of the robbery, they end up pulling the trigger and you get murdered. This is the results of my decisions of choosing to have this livelihood. It's not about the human laws. It's about the natural law of karma. So it's functioning at a much higher level. At the very least, I'm going to have to deal with intoxicated people from time to time, because they're coming in to buy these products that I'm selling and they're already intoxicated and they want more, right? So how can you get to a peaceful and joyful life and a peaceful and joyful mind if you're having to deal with intoxicated people all the time? So this is the natural law of karma. It's not the human laws. So you could go through each one of these and you could independently verify these, that it's causing harm, and you can see the harm that's coming to people as a result of practicing these livelihoods. And this is how you cultivate that wisdom. And then whether you choose to actually do one of these livelihoods or not, that's a choice for you to make. I'm just here helping you see this natural law of karma. Your life, your choices, your decisions. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm not here to try to tell you to do anything. I'm here helping you to see this path to a peaceful mind and a peaceful life. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you, is helping you to see this natural law. But then once you're practicing this, where you're not actually doing one of these livelihoods, the Buddha teaches you to perform your livelihood in a certain way that's going to promote the most success in your livelihood. Because what you'd ultimately like to get to is a point where you're enjoying your livelihood so much that it doesn't even feel like work, that you just feel ambition and enthusiasm and motivation in the work that you're doing, that you're not just dragging yourself to work each day. How can you feel peaceful and joyful if you're having to drag yourself to work each day? So here he's explaining how to have success in your livelihood. He's talking about eliminating scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. What scheming is like corruption. So let's just say I was like the mayor of a town. I'm not causing any harm by being the mayor of a town. I'm not selling weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness or poisons. But if in the back, I'm actually doing corrupt, backhanded deals, and now I'm scheming, well, eventually people are going to find out. And now they're not going to reelect me. And I'm going to find it very hard to actually sustain my life. So the Buddha is teaching you to eliminate scheming as part of your livelihood and not being corrupt. He's teaching you to eliminate flattery. What flattery is like insincere comments just to try to get someone to buy something from you. I don't know if you've ever been into this kind of store or not, but if you've ever been into a store, they might have said, wow, that shirt looks so nice on you. That color of that shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes, and the shape of your face just looks so amazing. I have these earrings that would look really good with that shirt that you've got on. Would you like to see them? Right? They're trying to flatter you just to try to get you to buy something. Well, if you do this in your livelihood, people are going to see through that. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience or not, but if you walk into the store and you get that, it's kind of like, ugh, I don't even interested to go into the store anymore, right? After you hear this, right? So that's what people are going to do. They're going to be repulsed, right? So you're not interested in doing insincere comments and flattery just to get people to buy things from you. Then what hinting is where you're not clear about the work in your communication that you're involved in. So for example, if we're on a project team and we're all working on a project together and we need to go brief the boss about what it is that we're working on, we'd like to be clear and concise about what it is that we're working on so we can update the boss about what it is that we're doing. And now we'll have lots of success in our livelihood. Then there's belittling. What belittling is being diminishing and degrading towards your customers, your coworkers, your business partners, your competition. Sometimes people think the way to get ahead in business is to degrade your competition. That's not true, because when you're belittling people, your customers, your coworkers, all these people are hearing that, and it reflects poorly on you in your profession. So if somebody asks you about your competition, the easiest thing to say is, I'm not sure what they do 100%, but this is what I can do for you, right? And just focus on what you can do, because you don't really know what they do 100%. I'm not sure what they do 100%, but this is what I can do for you, right? And now you just offer them that instead of degrading your competition. Then pursuing gain with gain. What this is where you really don't care about the work. You don't care about the product or the service. You're just interested in money, and that's all you want. So if you're just taking a job for the sake of the paycheck, and that's all you're doing is showing up for the paycheck, this job at the beginning, when you first get it, you'll probably really like it because you're getting this big fat paycheck. But then over time, your craving is going to diminish. And now you're stuck in this livelihood that you really don't feel good about. It feels very mundane. If you've ever had this kind of job where you just took the job for the paycheck and that's all you cared about, you probably dragged yourself to work each day. You didn't really care about the product or service. You just wanted that money, right? And now you feel like you're in a dead-end job. So the Buddha is teaching you to get to a point where that's not the case, that you can have enthusiasm and ambition and motivation towards the work that you're doing. You might have actually seen this here in Thailand. There's people here, like maybe on the corner, there's someone selling mango and sticky rice, right? And maybe this person woke up this morning and they took their basket out in their mango grove and they selected each mango out of their mango grove. They brushed off each mango, put it in their basket, and then they brought it to the market. And they're standing there with a big smile on their face, slicing their mangoes, right? And then they put it over top of that warm, sticky rice, and they pour that warm coconut milk on it. And then they hand it to you with a big smile, and they collect their 40 baht. They're not even really caring about the 40 baht. It's kind of immaterial. They need to collect the 40 baht because that's how they're going to sustain their life, but they just really enjoy serving you that mango and sticky rice. They can't imagine doing anything else other than giving you that mango and sticky rice. And that's what you need to do. You need to find your mango and sticky rice. What's your mango and sticky rice? If you're despising the work that you're doing right now and you're dragging yourself to work each day, that's not your mango and sticky rice. You've got to figure out what is it that you're going to have ambition and enthusiasm and motivation to do each day where it doesn't even feel like work. In fact, you enjoy it so much, if you didn't get paid for it, you'd actually still do it. You enjoy it that much. Right? So that's what you need to look for. And you're not going to necessarily be able to find that just with a snap of a fingers. So you'll see examples of this here in Thailand. People thoroughly enjoy the work that they're doing. They have a huge smile on their face, right? So this is right livelihood, where you're eliminating business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness and poisons, and you're eliminating scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. So now just a little recap for us is you would like to get to the point where you're communicating with right speech, whether it's text messages, social media, emails, voice messages, verbal. You'd like to not cause any harm through your speech, practicing the elimination of lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And then practicing those 5 factors of well-spoken speech, where you're speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And that's what's going to produce more and more wholesome results, or wholesome karma, in your day-to-day relationships. Then you like to practice right action, where you're not causing harm through your bodily actions, eliminating killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, but then any bodily action that causes harm, you like to eliminate all of that. And then you like to practice right livelihood, where you get to a point where you've purified your livelihood, where you're not causing any harm through your livelihood, and you can thoroughly enjoy the work that you do. So right now, if you're in a livelihood that you don't really enjoy, what I just taught you is the first fold of purification. The Buddha has a second fold of purification. It's in our book series in volume 12, chapter 14. You'll find it there. So if you're in between jobs, or if you're in a job that you don't particularly care for, you might decide to look at volume 12, chapter 14. That's where you're going to see the full teaching on right livelihood and how to get to a point where your mind is able to experience a livelihood that you thoroughly enjoy, and it doesn't even feel like work anymore. So do you guys have any questions on this moral conduct section? I saw you put your hand up earlier. Do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. At the beginning, you talked about cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I believe you stated that whatever action you do has an effect.
Mm-hmm.
But you explained it more in an absolute manner, or at least I understood it this way. And for example, I wanted to go kite surfing, and I looked for a location where there's reasonable wind at this time of the year. So my action was to go there. But then it was bad luck, and there was no wind. So earlier on you said, like it's not bad luck or good luck, but it's like your cause and then your effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so my experience tells me differently. Based on my experience, it's a combination of both. So certainly I had a reasonable approach to based on my wisdom or knowledge, to go into a place where it was expected to be reasonable wind.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was an external influence that I had no control over, and that was good or bad luck. So I don't know how that relates to what you stated.
Okay, so this is what your mind's currently believing, that there's good luck and bad luck. You need to be able to see the truth that there's a cause and effect relationship here. That wind that you're looking for, it's not permanent. Even though there's a place that is known for a certain amount of wind, it's not permanent. So sometimes you're going to go there and there's going to be great wind, and maybe the majority of the time there is wind, but sometimes you're going to go there and there's not going to be wind. This isn't good luck or bad luck. This is just the universal truth of impermanence, that sometimes there's going to be wind and sometimes there's not. There's no such thing as good luck or bad luck. It's just decisions, that your decision was to go there at this particular time, and the cause and effect of how the weather systems work and all of this, that at that particular time there was not wind, and this was impermanence. It wasn't good luck or bad luck. You need to be able to see this truth.
Okay, thank you that I used the word good luck and bad luck. I'm teacher of statistics, so I would use probability instead. So, but one thing for sure is that I have no control, as you said, because things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
So cause and effect is not a true relationship of 100%, because there's probability. Like, because of the external changes you explained, everything's changing. Weather, for example.
It is 100%. Everything that you experience, there's a cause and then there's an effect. What you haven't seemed to understood is right now, based on what you currently understand about the world, you have a lack of wisdom. the way that your mind currently thinks about the world is not 100% true, or else you would have already eliminated your discontent feelings. You still experience anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other feelings. That's why your mind's experiencing that, because the mind's not fully awake and you haven't fully cultivated wisdom. So what you're doing is you're taking what you currently think about the world and you're saying, this is the way the world is. But that's not the way the world is. There is a cause and effect relationship with every single thing. Everything that happens in the world, there's a cause and then there's effect. Nothing can happen without a cause. Whenever you see an effect, there's always a cause that's producing it. So you've got to be able to peer into this. Don't believe what I'm saying. Don't believe the books. Don't believe the Buddha. But don't believe what you currently think too. What you're currently thinking is not 100% true, and you have the indication of what's going on in your mind to be able to help you see that. So you need to peer into this and be able to look at it beyond what you currently think and realize and start from the position of you don't currently understand everything about the world that there is to know.
I don't understand everything about the world right now, and I probably will never, and I don't know anyone who does. So I'm completely confident that it's okay for me not to know everything. The question I still feel is like understand systems theory. There's a science of systems theory showing that it's a lot of causes and then a lot of effects, but there's not one single cause that has a 100% effect, because there are influential matters like the wind or weather. In that case, there are a lot more other effects and causes as well. So it's called systems theory, and I certainly don't expect any cause to have a 100% effect on anything.
That's not what I said. You're taking what you currently think about the world and you're superimposing it on what I'm sharing. What I'm sharing is that the world is functioning through a cause and effect. But I'm not saying this one cause will absolutely lead to this one effect. I haven't said that. In fact, when I'm giving you examples of eliminating certain conduct, I'm saying these are all the possibilities of what could potentially happen in any one particular situation. But there's never a situation where this particular thing is absolutely going to lead to this particular thing. You can't come to that conclusion, but instead there's this cause is going to lead to these potential multiple effects. So what the world is experiencing is the natural law of cause and effect. Every single thing that we experience is originating from a certain cause. Why do I have these clothes on? Well, I went to the store. I asked, well, actually I sent her a message, but I sent a message. I said, hey, I would like to order these clothes. I'd like this many. They ordered them from the suppliers. Their suppliers put them together. There's a cause and effect thing here. Why are you wearing those clothes? Why are you wearing those glasses? Why does your hair look this way? Why are you sitting there? Why do you have that book in front of you? Why do you have that phone there? There's all causes and effects that are leading to every single thing that you're experiencing. And this is what you've got to be able to see, that it's not good luck or bad luck. The fact that you're sitting in that spot is not good luck or bad luck. It was a choice. There was a certain cause and now there's an effect. And you need to be able to see that at each part of your life, that there's decisions that you're making that are leading to certain results. Because if it was good luck or bad luck, then that means it's essentially predetermined and you have no control over what it is that you experience. And now you're stuck. And you've got to be able to see that what you experience is coming from decisions that you make. And now by cultivating wisdom and making decisions, you will experience a certain result or a certain effect. And you'll see that more and more when you learn this and you implement this. You will see how it works to produce the results that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm.
Now I understand that it was not one cause leading to one effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I share your what you explained completely, and I did already share that even before you explained. So I must have misunderstood your previous example.
It's okay. One of the things that I share typically at the beginning of some of these courses is I share with people what you're going to hear me teach you in a course like this in many situations is going to be completely opposite of what you currently think about the world. And that's a really good thing. If you're in a classroom where you agree 100% with what the teacher is saying, you're in the wrong classroom, because you're not growing, you're not developing, you're not coming to new growth and new development. So when a student comes to this temple and comes to this classroom, their mind being unenlightened, when they hear things about the way that an enlightened being functions and the wisdom that they have, in some cases, it's going to be completely opposite of what you currently think about the world. And where you see that, ask questions, right? Because you need to get clarification. You need to be able to understand. But you've always got to come from the standpoint of what you currently think is not 100% the truth. Because otherwise, you're going to be allowing your ego to come through, where the mind thinks that you already know, where you actually don't. So an individual who's gotten to enlightenment, they know the natural laws with 100% certainty, with 100% clarity. They know what is true and what is false about these natural laws. And then communicating that to others, people aren't going to understand it 100%, and they're going to need to ask questions. So ask questions. That's important. But you just got to make sure that you understand that my goal isn't to get you to agree with me, right? Because I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I already know the truth here. But if you are interested in seeing this truth, you got to put aside what you currently think about the world in some cases in order to be able to see this truth that the Buddha is sharing with you.
Thank you. And
it's on. Yeah.
Thank you. I believe that the reason why I got involved with my question was exactly because our belief systems is not 100% identical, and that's why I asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to actually benefit from the conversation, and I do benefit from the conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm not believing in anything. So it's not that our belief systems are different. It's that perhaps you're having beliefs and I'm not, and I'm speaking from the truth, from wisdom, and your mind's not going to be able to see that wisdom 100% right away, right? And even if we have direct communication, sometimes communication gets confused as well. So I'm not functioning through beliefs, and my goal isn't to get you to believe anything. My objective is to help you to be able to see the truth and invite you to be able to see that truth. But you've got to peer through what you currently think about the world.
Yeah, maybe I should only talk about myself because I believe in things, and I understand that you state that you know the truth. I, during my dissertation period, learned that there's philosophers that say there is no truth, and that's also my own belief. That's why we have a little bit of a different perspective on the world.
Yeah, well, I know what the state of my mind was before I learned these teachings, and I know what the state of my mind is now, and I know what the state of my life was before these teachings, and I know what the state of my life is now, and I know that these teachings lead exactly where the Buddha said that they do, to this peaceful and joyful mental state. So I know with 100% certainty that these teachings are true. And a philosopher or somebody else in the world can say that there's no such thing as true, but just because they say it doesn't make it true, right? So there's 100% truth in this world that you can come to, and you can cultivate that wisdom. And I know that hasn't been your experience up to this point in your life, but now if you set aside what you're believing that you've heard from these other people, that there's no such thing as truth, if you set that aside and you independently verify this and you practice it, you'll see the same truth that the Buddha saw and that I see and that other people see. And then you'll know that, yes, there is 100% truth. It is true. Yeah, sure.
I just have a question about the natural law of Gamma. Like I understand kind of like we're talking about this action reaction, right? But I find that some things that paralyze me because you had a diagram that says your life, your decision, your result, right?
Yeah.
So I find that could be paralyzing because there's so many choices, right? And then so many decisions to make, and then depending on the decision you make or the action you make, you're going to have one result or the other. So that kind of puts lots of pressure on the decision you make. And I understand that the Buddha is explaining, kind of like through what you just said, no weapons, no alcohol, no. It's kind of hinting on what is a kind of like wholesome decisions, or surrounding you to a wholesome environment so that you get wholesome decisions, so that the decisions lead to wholesome results. Or that's what I'm understanding. But it is, well, my question is, how can I stop finding it so paralyzing? And the follow-up question, which perhaps refined my first question, is...
Can I answer one question at a time?
Of course, sorry.
Okay. All right. So the only reason why someone would feel pressure to make a decision is because of the craving, desire, attachment. That's what produces the pressure in one's own mind, is they put pressure on themselves based on craving, desire, attachment. So one of the things that it sounds like might be in there is a craving to be perfect, or a craving to be perfect. Yeah. Like if you're thinking each individual decision, you feel a lot of pressure because you know it's going to lead to a certain result. There can be a craving for perfection, right? And instead, what you need to be able to realize is that you're a work in progress, that you're not yet a perfect being, and you are going to make unwise decisions. Between now and enlightenment, you're going to make unwise decisions, because you can't just snap your fingers and instantly start speaking gentle, for example. It's not possible, right? So you're going to make some unwise decisions. So don't put pressure on yourself. It's not the Buddha doing it. It's the mind doing it to itself, that it's craving to be perfect. It's craving to do things a certain way. And just understand you're a work in progress. There's wisdom that needs to be cultivated. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You are going to make mistakes, but you learn through those mistakes. When your ultimate goal is to cultivate wisdom, then you understand that there's no such thing as failure. Because every time you make a mistake, there's cultivation of wisdom. So there's never a failure. Like, let's just say you started a business and you operated that business for 2 years and then you closed it and it didn't do well. You didn't fail, right? You cultivated wisdom in the process. You now know how to start a business. In the next business that you start, maybe it goes 5 years and then it closes. Well, now you've got more wisdom. And now after maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses, you actually start a business, you operate it, and all the way through, now it's wildly successful, right? So there's no such thing as failure when your ultimate goal is to cultivate wisdom. So don't put pressure on yourself that you have to be perfect today. Just understand that there's a progression here of cultivation of wisdom in each situation. If you're cultivating wisdom, that's a success. One of the things you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're changing your perspective of how you look at the world. Because sometimes we look at it as black and white, and that's not what the Buddha is presenting to you. He's not presenting to you a black and white world. He's helping you to see all the gray areas. So instead of looking at it as black and white or right and wrong, the Buddha is helping you to change your perspective, to be able to see things in a different way. And now you will process the world around you differently than you do right now. And that's what will lead to improved results.
I can definitely see the perfection. I'm probably going to have to rewatch this class, because sometimes when you're speaking to me, I'm like clicking, but then I exit the class and it's like, I have no idea what David told me. You know, I kind of forget about it. But one example that came to my mind is, for example, having phones, right? Like we all know that in a way it's necessary to have phones if we want to live in society, but we all know that majority % of the phones come from child slavery, like, you know, the manufacturing of phones, or like the raw materials, right? And in a way is like, okay, this, I'm contributing to child slavery, super indirectly, but I am, and that will produce unwholesome karma. But at the same time, I don't need a phone to survive, but I kind of need it if I want to sustain my life. Well, not necessarily, but I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Yes. So this is where the mind gets confused, is that you need to be able to understand that it's your decisions that lead to any particular result that you're experiencing. So if you see a product and you purchase that product, you're choosing to purchase the product. And now, in some situations, we are able to do research and see where that product comes from. And now we might choose to either purchase or not purchase that product based on the ethics of this company. But when you talk about a product like a phone, there are so many individual components in that phone that if you were going to do the research on each individual component and each factory that it comes from and what are their employment practices and all that kind of stuff, you'd be mired in all kinds of details, right? So your karma is that you're purchasing a product, you're purchasing a phone, and you're not causing any harm by purchasing that phone. If this person over here has a livelihood that they're using child labor in order to produce that product, they're the ones that are experiencing that unwholesome karma. It's not you that's experiencing that, because the world is so interconnected now. If your karma was related to what everybody else is doing in the world, you'd have no control. You'd have no ability to clean that up. So there are certain situations where, we might choose to use recyclable materials for our take home food, right? And we choose to eat at this restaurant because they use those products, where this restaurant over here uses foam or plastic, and we're not interested in eating there because of that. And we can see that very clearly, and we can make that choice, right? But that's a choice that we're making to use a certain product or not. But in a situation like a phone, you're so far removed from what is actually happening that you're not experiencing any karma there. That's the individual who's choosing to set up that factory and employ those people, if that happens, because I've never seen that with my own eyes. I don't even know if that happens. People say it happens, but I don't know. So you're not experiencing the karma in that situation. If you have awareness, or there's a level of awareness that you can develop, then develop that awareness and then make your choices accordingly. But you've got to practice the middle way here. If you researched to the level of degree that we're talking about with every single product that you purchased, you'd probably purchase one product a year, right? It'd be very difficult, because not only do you have to practice, let's just say there's 100 manufacturers that put this phone together. Those 100 manufacturers, their employment practices are changing all the time. So with each individual purchase, you'd have to investigate each one of those 100 manufacturers, right? So, you've got to not hold on to it like that, but you also can't be on the other side where you could care less about what other people's practices are and who you're choosing to purchase from, because there's two extremes here. There's investigating every single company and all their employment practices, and the other side is, I don't care, I'm just going to purchase from anybody and everybody, right? So there's a middle way here, is that you, in some cases, can become aware of this information and you can make wise choices that influence improved decision-making from a company. But in other cases like this, you're not going to be able to do that, or else you're going to be so mired in investigation of companies that you're only going to ever be able to purchase one product a year, kind of thing. So you've got to find the middle way with this kind of stuff.
And how do I know that I'm not, how can I independently verify, I guess, that I'm not experiencing unwholesome karma by purchasing a phone, for example? Because
there would be harm coming to you. With any particular cause, with any particular action, there's going to be an effect. So when you purchase this phone, what is it that you experience? Well, I experience the ability to communicate. I experience the ability to order food. I experience the ability to play some games every once in a while. This is what I'm experiencing as a result of purchasing this phone. There's nothing unwholesome. There's nothing harmful that's coming to me from the purchase of this phone. That's how you verify that you're not experiencing any unwholesome karma. Because the natural law of karma is the most unbiased teacher you'll ever find, because it's going to show you in every situation when you're experiencing wholesome results and unwholesome results. So whenever you make a decision That's why the Buddha teaches you to slow down your decisions and just make very few decisions at a time, because you need to be able to monitor each one of your decisions and what you're experiencing as a result. As you get going with these teachings and you have the wisdom, you don't have to just make a few decisions. You can make plenty of decisions in a day, right? But early on, when you're going through the training process, it's really good to just make very few decisions so you can monitor and see what are the results that you're experiencing as a result of that decision. So whenever you experience unwholesome results in your life, you need to look at that and say, what were the decisions I made that led to this? Because I'd like to stop making those decisions. But you can also look at the other side. When you're experiencing wholesome results, what were the decisions I made that led to this? Because I'd like to experience more of these types of things. And this is one of the ways that you cultivate the wisdom. The Buddha is giving you the structure and the template of helping you to see all the major things, but then there's all these little subtleties that you will learn as part of your experience with life and making decisions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I need to ponder on that, but thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
I would like to understand what is mean with not to deal with meat.
So that would be like being a butcher, like selling meat. That's what business in meat is we can see the unwholesome effects here. Like this is where COVID apparently came from, right? There was like a meat market where people were selling dead animals and meat, and now the virus went from the animal world into the human world, and then we all experienced COVID-19. This is the results of our decisions of choosing to have this livelihood. And those people who were in that livelihood, those people, a lot of them died because it was before they had vaccines. It was before they knew what was going on. That was like ground zero for COVID. And those people were impacted the most and had a higher rate of death than potentially later once we had vaccines and stuff like this. So selling meat would be like being a butcher and selling being a butcher or selling meat at a market and things like this, because when you're interacting with the meat, there's going to be disease and bacteria that can then come into this body. This is the cause and effect that you'll experience as a result. That's the potential of what can occur.
And what means no harm through all bodily conduct?
So that's the way you interact in the world, right? So when you walk through the world, when you're interacting in the world, you would like to make sure that you're not causing any harm. One of the things you'll see Thai people doing is they tend to kind of like even their clothes, like if they have loose clothes, they will even make sure that their loose clothes aren't bumping into people as they're walking down the street. They tend to be very aware of their body and how they move through society, that you're not causing any harm through your bodily actions in the way that you use your body.
It's not dealing with animals also? Or is it?
What do you mean?
Now, the question I have is it allowed to kill animals? When you say it is not allowed to kill people, is it the same?
It's not about what's allowed or not allowed. The Buddha's not giving you rules and commandments to follow. He's showing you the natural law that if you kill any living being, there's going to be unwholesome results from that. So if you went out and you killed an animal, there's going to be unwholesome results that you experience as part of that. So it's not about whether you're allowed to do it or not allowed to do it. It's that when you see the truth of the natural law, you would make wise choices. It's kind of like walking down the beach and the sand is blowing in my face. When I see the truth that this is coming from me and I'm the one who's causing this, naturally I'm going to stop doing it because I'm not interested in experiencing that result. So when you see the results of by killing another being and you see the results that you experience, you on your own will be less and less interested in doing that when you can see that truth. But of course, there's a lot of people in the world that are killing human beings and killing animals that they don't see that. They can't see the impacts that they're experiencing, so they keep killing. And that's what it means to be unawake, that you continue to make unwise decisions. But when you're awake, you have the wisdom to see that this choice of killing any living being is going to produce unwholesome results, and you need to be able to see that in your day-to-day life. So for example, when I was growing up, I worked on a farm for a period of time when I was like 17, 18 years old, and we were catching sheep and goats and stuff like this, and we were killing them because there were people that were buying meat, right? Well, I didn't see it at the time, but there was lots of unwholesome karma that I was experiencing in that situation. I can tell you about it, but there's all kinds of unwholesome karma there, but I kept doing it because I didn't see at that time the unwholesome karma. But now, understanding this natural law and now looking at that and seeing what I did, oh yeah, there was all kinds of unwholesome karma. So it's not about what's allowed or not allowed. It's about you awakening to this natural laws. And then when you see the truth and you have that wisdom, you will make wise choices because you're disinterested in experiencing unwholesome results coming back to you.
That means to me that I did not kill a mosquitoes and send them away to go from me.
Yeah, what people usually do with mosquitoes is they usually brush them off or they blow, because sometimes their body's so frail, even when you do that, it kills them. This is an act of loving kindness. And this is the intention of harmlessness and the intention of non-ill will, that you have the intention of not causing harm. So let's just say that you are swiping the mosquito and your intention is to not cause harm, and you swipe it and now it gets killed. Well, in order for there to be karma, there has to be intention behind it. So because your intention is goodwill and you're trying to get rid of the mosquito, you're going to experience wholesome karma, even though the mosquito died. For example, if you're walking down the street and your goal is to go to the store and a cockroach runs and crawls under your foot and you crush it and it dies, there was no intention to kill there. So there's no unwholesome karma as a result, versus you're walking down the street actively looking for cockroaches, stomping on them to try to kill them. Now you're experiencing unwholesome karma in that situation. So in order to get to the point where you're experiencing wholesome or unwholesome karma, there has to be intention. And that intention is either going to be wholesome or unwholesome, whether it's based in craving, anger, and ignorance, which you guys haven't learned yet, or generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. Mm-hmm. What's that? That's the only one?
That's the only one I need to learn, because when I'm in my room and it is one of them sleep,
oh, okay,
I need to learn that I have to put it away from my room.
Yeah, you just kind of shoo it out, kind of let it go so that you don't hear that noise and it's flying around and stuff. And then you can also train your mind to not be affected by that sound too. Yeah, they bite you. Mosquitoes don't bite me. They did when I was a kid, but they don't bite me anymore. But I don't kill them. I don't kill them either, right? By the time you get to enlightenment, you will have extinguished all your unwholesome karma. You won't be experiencing any unwholesome karma any longer. So for me, mosquitoes don't bite me. But I don't kill them. I haven't killed a mosquito in a very, very, very long time.
In regards to intention, first of all, I love it that it's so, trying to be such a good person, not eating meat and like not killing and stuff. That's really beautiful. In regards to intention, like if I fly from Europe to Thailand, I'm using a plane and it's fuel consumption. So there's no intent for me to destroy fuel and to have negative impacts on the nature. But there is. So how would you consider flying? Like, is there a bad karma for me, or is it moral or not moral? I'm really asking. I know people that really say you can't fly to Thailand and go to like a lecture or whatever. It's not okay. So I'm asking myself, is it okay, or I don't know. What's your opinion?
Yeah, this is where you need to see, again, the middle way, right? That when we say you're practicing the intention of harmlessness, that's not to say that, just sitting here and there's probably little microorganisms or micro animals, insects underneath of those cushions that you're sitting on, and that they're probably dying right now, right? So it's not to say that you aren't ever going to kill a being. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you about your intention, because whenever you make decisions through craving, anger, and ignorance, which you guys haven't learned yet, it's going to produce unwholesome results. So just walking down the street, there's going to be ants that die or insects that die because you're walking, right? So flying from wherever you said you're flying from to here, there's going to be effect with the fuel that's being burned, and it's going to affect the environment. But you have to balance all of this to be able to see, well, what's the real results here of me being able to go to Thailand? Well, if you're able to learn these teachings and you're able to get to a point where you're experiencing enlightenment, that's the very best thing for you and countless other people in the world, because now you're not going to be causing harm through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, and you've just kind of given the best gift that you can give to everybody, which is freedom from fear, freedom from the harm that you would otherwise have caused them. So it's not that you have to live in this, micro bubble and, never put anything into the world that could potentially affect the world in some particular way. It's that you come to the middle and you make wise decisions about what it is that you're choosing to do. So for me, I fly commercial, which is easy because I don't have enough money to fly private. But I wouldn't fly in a private jet, because me by myself going from here, say, to the USA, I think that would be harmful for me. That's me. Now, I'm not telling other people what they should or shouldn't do in that situation, because everybody's life is different. But for me, I choose to fly commercial because all of us together, yes, there is this effect to the environment, but these 300 people, 400 people, we're all going one place. And now there's the ability for all these people to experience something different by moving to that new place. So you've got to be able to see, like, what is the middle for you? Understanding that just walking down the street, you're killing animals, you're killing insects. But your intention isn't that, right? The same thing is like when you're flying from one place to the other, your intention isn't to harm the environment. In fact, if there was probably a choice of completely environmentally friendly transportation from where you were to here, you would probably choose that instead of what you ended up needing to choose, which was this jet that had fuel. But that's where we are in the world right now. That's the solution that we have. Sometime in the future, we might have air transportation or other transportation that doesn't incur that same impact to the environment. But right now, based on where we're at and based on what you need, this is the middle way. For me, is I feel completely comfortable flying commercial. I don't feel like I'm doing any kind of unwise thing in that situation. And someday when there's a choice to have a cleaner transportation, I would choose that rather than what we currently have. But this is the best that we have at this time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Last one. You said that if there, in order for it to be like unwholesome gamma, there needs to be unwholesome intention. So if there's no unwholesome intention, you will not experience unwholesome gamma.
Right.
How do we know that? Like, how? Because otherwise, how do we know that?
This is where you learn the three poisons, the three unwholesome roots of craving, anger, and ignorance. Whenever you're making decisions through that, it's going to produce unwholesome gamma, unwholesome results. So the way you're going to know this is through what I'm about to teach you now, which is the mental discipline, is through your mental discipline with your right mindfulness, you will be able to see, are you making decisions based in craving, anger, or ignorance? And if you are, it's going to produce unwholesome results or unwholesome gamma.
But what I mean is, like, I am killing ants by walking. This is not my intention, but I'm killing it. I'm putting harm out there.
Okay.
I'm harming animals. Just doing a random example. It's just like, it's not my intention to put harm, but I'm doing harm. So how do I know that how can I independently verify, I guess, that because I didn't have that intention, that harm is not gonna come back to me. Like,
Oh, okay.
what is intention? So
you can see when you're walking down the street and this cockroach runs under your foot and you smash it, you can see that there's no unwholesome results that are coming to you in that situation. Whereas if there was a human being standing there and you took, or even an animal, and you took some kind of weapon and you killed that living being, there's going to be harm that comes to you in that situation. In the natural law of karma, it's not immediate as well, right? And part of the natural law of karma is the discontentedness that you experience, right? So if you went around, like, I'll give you examples from my life. When I was a kid, I used to like shooting a BB gun, right? A BB gun. This was like a little copper pellet and you kind of shoot. And it helps you to learn how to shoot a gun. And one of the things I used to do is I used to shoot birds. And it was like a way of target practicing, right? And I would kill these birds. But after I killed it, I always felt guilty. I always felt shameful when I would see it, right? And it would be sitting there. Sometimes you didn't kill it all the way and it's kind of flopping around. And sometimes you would see that it even has babies and you didn't know that it had babies, right? And you feel really guilty and shameful when you do this. That's because I had a craving to kill, a craving to do this, where I could have used a target. I could have used a paper target instead. But as a young boy, I didn't understand that. I didn't have that wisdom, right? So you can see in the situation where you use a paper target, there's no guilt, there's no shame. When you kill this living being, there's guilt and there's shame. That's your unwholesome karma that you're experiencing, because the intention is different and the decision has been made differently. The decision was made through craving, anger towards the bird, ill will towards the bird, and ignorance, this unknowing of true reality and the lack of wisdom of the natural laws. Where if I'm using the paper target, now I'm practicing generosity, loving kindness, but maybe mainly wisdom, that I'm choosing not to cause harm to any living being. So that's how you can see for your own purposes of when you're walking down the street and you step on a cockroach and it just happens to run under your feet. You're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to do that. And your mind's completely peaceful because you know there was no intention to kill there. If you have a craving in your mind, though, because sometimes people have craving for all beings to be safe, you might feel guilt. But the guilt's not coming from your actually killing. The guilt is coming from your craving that you have for all beings to be safe. It's not coming from the action of actually killing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys have a lot of questions. That's good. All right. So now I'll finish this up with helping you to understand the mental discipline, okay? Because this moral conduct is great. Like, if you learn the moral conduct of the Buddha, it's right on. It'll guide you to complete peace and complete joy and harmonious relationships. But it's very difficult to implement the moral conduct if you don't have the mental discipline. Because it's one thing to say that you should speak gentle, and you can see that, like, yeah, if I spoke gentle to my mom and dad and my brothers and sisters, and I did that for a long-term period, my relationships would really improve. But it's a whole other thing to do it. So that's where the mental discipline section comes in. It's going to help you to actually be able to do it, where you can practice things like gentle speech. So you wouldn't be able to practice this moral conduct without the mental discipline. So here's the words of the Buddha on right effort. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So he's talking about 4 things that you're going to need to apply the effort to do What he's talking about are these here. He's teaching you to prevent unwholesome mental states from arising in the mind. There are certain unwholesome things that if they came into your mind and you acted upon them, it's producing all kinds of unwholesome results. So the Buddha is teaching you to apply the effort to prevent those types of things from ever coming into the mind. An example of this would be like killing another human being. This is probably the farthest thing from your mind right now. You have no interest in killing another human being whatsoever. There's that, and there's probably lots of others too that aren't in your mind. They're completely outside your mind. And the Buddha is saying prevent those unwholesome things from ever coming into your mind. Then he teaches you to apply the effort to abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. Because there's certain unwholesome mental states in your mind right now. If your mind's unenlightened, you have unwholesome mental states, and you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate those. So for example, say you're in an existing relationship and you have a craving for sex outside of that relationship. Well, if you have that, you know that's going to produce unwholesome results if you act upon it. So when you see that unwholesome mental state, you'd like to apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind. Or say anger or frustration or agitation, as that's coming up into your mind, as you act upon that with your speech and your actions, it's going to produce unwholesome results. You can independently verify that. You can have the wisdom to see that whenever you have anger, it produces unwholesome results for you within your own mind and in your relationships, right? And you would like to apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind because it's an unwholesome mental state. Then there's certain wholesome mental states that you're going to learn about that you're going to need to have in your mind, but they're not currently in your mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring these wholesome mental states into your mind. So for example, generosity. You'll learn as part of this path that you're going to need to practice generosity, which is giving and sharing with the people around you, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. Because when you practice generosity, it actually trains your mind to let go. Because craving, desire, attachment, your mind's holding on, and you need to train it to let go. And generosity is going to help you to be able to do that. So if you find it hard to share with people, where you find that you're quite selfish, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this generosity into your mind. Or say something like compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. If you're on one side of this, you'll be indifferent to other people's misfortune. You'd be like, I don't care about that person. It's not my mom. It's not my dad. I don't care. They're homeless. So what? I don't care. That's indifference. The other side of this is worry and anxiety. Oh my gosh, those kids don't have food. What are they going to do? How are they going to eat? Oh my gosh. And now your mind is overly active, worrying about these children that don't have food. Well, what you'd like to do is bring this to the middle, which is compassion, which is concern for the misfortune of others. And you're going to need to apply the effort to bring your mind to that point. Then there's the fourth one, which is to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind, bring them to full growth, full perfection, and full development. Because there's certain wholesome mental states that are currently in your mind right now, but they haven't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. You're going to need to apply the effort to do that. So for example, loving kindness. You probably have loving kindness in your mind right now. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You probably have that to a certain degree, but it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. Because in some situations, you get really angry and you have ill will towards other people. You would like to see harm come to that person. That's because your loving kindness hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, or full development. Sympathetic joy is an example of that. Sympathetic joy is probably something you have in your mind. Sympathetic joy is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. Like maybe one of your friends or family was like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand in about 6 months. And you're like, oh, I've been to Thailand. That's a great place. They have mango and sticky rice. They have massages. By the way, there's this lady that sells mango and sticky rice on the corner. You might decide to give her a little visit because she has really great mango and sticky rice, right? You have sympathetic joy in your mind. But now let's just say you're at work and there's a new position that opens up. And this new position is a promotion. You get bigger salary, bigger title, bigger office, and you apply for the job, and some of your coworkers apply for it too. But they get the job instead of you. And now you're jealous and you're envious. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that up in your mind and practice that, because that's what's going to get rid of your jealousy and your envy. Okay, so this is right effort. The examples I'm using here are just examples to help you understand what is right effort, but you're going to need to figure out what are the wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind and that are currently in your mind, and what are the unwholesome qualities that aren't in your mind and that are currently in your mind. You're going to have to figure that out, right? And that's where the next step comes in. It's going to help you to be able to see what is wholesome and what is unwholesome that's currently in your mind. The way that I teach this right effort to my son when he was really young is I taught him to kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. You need to apply the effort to do this. It's not just going to happen by itself. You're going to need to apply the effort to do it. So here's the words of the Buddha on right mindfulness, because you wouldn't be able to practice right effort without right mindfulness. He says, in what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So he's talking about four things here: body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects. He's talking about what's called the four foundations of mindfulness. But before we talk about that, let me just talk about mindfulness in general. In general, what mindfulness means is awareness of mind. You're going to need to have awareness of your thoughts, your ideas, what's going on in here. Oftentimes, we don't have that. When we go through life, we just kind of plow through life, knocking down the trees, burning up the forest, not really aware what's going on. We start smelling smoke and we're like, who lit the fire? And then we look behind us and we see all those trees are knocked down. And we're like, oh my goodness, who knocked down all those trees? And then we learn right view, the Four Noble Truths, and we're like, oh, I knocked down all those trees, right? I'm the one who started those fires, right? So mindfulness is helping you to have awareness of what's going on in your mind, because oftentimes you don't have awareness of what's going on in your own mind. Now, some people use this word mindfulness nowadays in common language that they're not necessarily using it the way that the Buddha used it. You're going to need to understand how the Buddha used it in order to be able to come to the understanding that he's sharing with you. What some people say is they will say things like, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to that table over there? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? They've just inserted the word mindful instead of careful. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you to have awareness of your mind. So if other people use it in that way, that's up to them. But you would like to be able to more and more understand, what does mindfulness mean? It means awareness of your mind and being aware of what's going on in the mind. But then more specifically, it's the four foundations of mindfulness. What the Buddha teaches you here is to have awareness of these four things, because this is what's going to help you to transform your mind. What he's teaching you is the life cycle that your discontent feelings are going to take. Prior to you experiencing a feeling, you actually experience bodily sensations that you may or may not be aware of right now. With something like anger, you'll experience tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is an early warning system alerting you. You're about to experience anger. You're about to get frustrated. You're about to be annoyed or some other discontent feeling. With something like shyness, it's usually queasiness in the stomach. Even those conditioned pleasant feelings, they have bodily sensations too. It's usually tingling across the shoulders, up the back of the neck, over the head. Some people call these warm fuzzies. Have you heard that before? right? They're like, oh, that feels so good. Oh, I like that. They really indulge in that, right? So all these conditioned feelings, whether they're pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, they have bodily sensations first. And what the Buddha is teaching you to do is become aware of those bodily sensations, because then you can apply right effort to cut it off and let it go. You're not suppressing your feeling or repressing it. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. Because if you let it become a feeling, your mind's going to stay wired this way. So you're trying to get ahead of the curve where your mind's alerting you that it's about to form a feeling. And you say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. It's kind of like if you were going to take a boat from Australia to Indonesia and you're out in the middle of the sea, you'd like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with, right? So you'd like to prevent these feelings from ever coming into the mind. Once you allow the conditioned feeling into the mind, your mind's going to stay wired that way to continue to experience these conditioned feelings. So the bodily sensations are kind of like, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. And you say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. You apply right effort and you cut it off and let it go. If you do this enough, eventually you won't experience the arising of any conditioned feelings because your mind has been trained to no longer do that. But in the process, you're going to need to have this awareness of the bodily sensations. But sometimes you're going to miss it as a bodily sensation because right now your mindfulness isn't fully developed. And it's going to become a feeling. That's the next step. But it's going to become a feeling. And if you notice that at the point of the feeling, cut it off and let it go there. Don't allow it to continue to reside in your mind. Because if you don't cut it off as a feeling, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. So have you ever been angry or irritated or grumpy for like a couple of hours or a couple of days or maybe a week or two? Yeah, of course you have, right? Because we didn't understand this. We didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation, and we didn't cut it off as a feeling, and it affected the condition of our mind. So for a few hours, a few days, maybe even a week or two, we were grumpy and irritable and nasty, right? This is not fun. So the Buddha is teaching you to have awareness of that condition of your mind, because if you missed it as a bodily sensation and you missed it as a feeling, you've got to cut it off as a condition of the mind. Don't allow your mind to dwell in this disgruntledness, because if you allow your mind to stay wired that way, it's just going to keep doing that. Then there's something called a mental object. What a mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind. Those 10 fetters, those 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered, those are mental objects. You need to be aware of the symptoms of those. In this example, the mental object is ill will. There's this deeply rooted container in your mind called ill will. We weren't born with ill will. We didn't have ill will. When we went into the hospital and we went into the nursery, we didn't hate other babies, right? We didn't have that. But we acquired that over time because our mind didn't understand this. We had this lack of wisdom. So our mind experienced anger and frustration. It arose in our mind because we had craving. And then it formed this deeply rooted container of ill will because we didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation. We didn't cut it off as a feeling. We didn't cut it off as a condition of the mind. So now we have this deeply rooted container in the unenlightened mind called ill will. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is essentially put a blockade at the bodily sensations, not allowing your mind to experience the conditioned feeling. And then what you're doing with all of his other tools and techniques is you're purifying the mind. You're uprooting the mental objects. You're purifying the mind of the 10 fetters and getting those pollutions out of the mind. So you're going to need to have awareness of what those 10 fetters are and the symptoms of them. Right? It's not something that I teach in this program, but in other ones I teach you guys this. Okay, so this is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is the technical description of it. But let me show you how this works in day-to-day life. Okay, let's just say I'm sitting on the sofa and I'm watching the news. And let's just say something comes on the news and you see it through your eyes and you hear it in your ears and you're starting to notice there's this anger that's rising. There's this tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. Well, if you understand what the Buddha is teaching you, you're not interested in just sitting there. and continue to dwell and allow that to become a feeling. Instead, cut off the news, redirect the mind. That's applying right effort. If you use right mindfulness, that you can see the feeling starting to arise as a bodily sensation, don't just dwell in that and allow the mind to form the feeling. Instead, cut off the news, go for a bike ride, go for a walk, go to the bathroom, wash your hands, go to the kitchen, get a glass of water, redirect your mind somewhere else. That'll cut it off and let it go. And if you do this enough, you'll build this internal mechanism within your mind that you'll be able to cut off and let go. And ultimately, you'll be able to watch the news. But during this period of time of training, you're going to need to step away and not allow your mind to dwell in that. Right? So this is right mindfulness, having awareness of mind, but more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of those bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. What's going to help you to develop right mindfulness is the next step. It's called right concentration. I'm not going to read this to you because what the Buddha is teaching you here is he's teaching you the results of having put together all of the Eightfold Path. He's describing something called the jhanas. These are preliminary phases that your mind's going to go through on your way to the first stage of enlightenment. There's 4 stages of enlightenment, and your mind's actually enlightened when you get to the 4th stage. But prior to getting to the first stage of enlightenment, there's 4 preliminary phases that your mind goes through. And he's explaining that to you here. And I teach you this in other programs. But instead, for this program, what I'm going to teach you is how to practice right concentration. What the Buddha is teaching you here is the results of having practiced the entire Eightfold Path. So the way that he teaches you to practice right concentration is that you need to develop a meditation practice and you need to develop singleness of mind. Your meditation practice is going to consist of 2 primary meditations: breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. We're going to be focusing on these as part of this course, where the breathing mindfulness meditation is when you're on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath. That's the breathing mindfulness meditation. It's helping you to develop mindfulness or awareness of mind, and it's helping you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. You're building this internal mechanism to cut off and let go, cut off and let go, cut off and let go. The goal of this isn't to eliminate your thoughts. You're going to have thoughts during meditation. Your goal is to notice them sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. Okay, so there's breathing mindfulness meditation. That's the first one. Usually people start with that for about 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and they work on that first. Then you bring in loving kindness meditation, which is what I'm going to teach you tomorrow morning. This is going to rewire your mind to get rid of anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions, like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike, where you can have love and kindness towards individuals and other beings, yourself and others as well. Because sometimes you have negative self-talk in your own mind, and you can get rid of that through loving kindness meditation. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow. But these are the 2 meditations that you would like to focus on. There's 2 others that are more specialized meditations that you'll learn as part of the programs that I teach, but it's not something that everybody needs. You'd like to gradually build up your meditation practice to 2 or 3 sessions for 30 minutes. This can sound like a lot for some people, depending on where you are in your life. But if you look at your life, there's probably some unbeneficial things that you're doing right now that you could scale those things back, and you would actually have more time to be able to do things like meditation. So if you're like searching social media 3 to 4 or 5 hours a day, or looking at endless YouTube videos, you could probably scale that stuff back a little bit, and you'd have much more time for meditation. Okay, so you're going to need to gradually build this up. It can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this level of frequency. What you're going to notice is your frequency is more important than the amount. So if it's a matter of 1 meditation for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, the 2 for 15 is actually going to be more beneficial. So I would focus on the 2 for 15 and then just gradually expand that to be 30 minutes for each one. Okay. Then you're going to need to practice something called singleness of mind in order to be able to practice right concentration. This is where you're doing just one thing at a time. You might have been taught that you can multitask. Sometimes this is what people teach you. You're not actually multitasking. your mind can only actually do one thing at a time. What you're actually doing is you're doing one thing for like 3 to 5 seconds, and then you're rapidly cycling to something else for like 8 seconds, and then you're going to something else for 5 seconds, and then you're going back to this thing over here. Your mind's just like racing around a horse track, right? And this is why when you get home at the end of your day, you find it very hard to rest and relax because you've been racing around the horse track. If you've ever been to a horse races and you watch horses race around the track, if you go to the barn, the horses are all hyped up. They can't calm down because they're racing around the horse track. So if that's what you do at work, that's what you do in your personal life, you're racing around trying to multitask, you're not actually being more productive. You're actually causing difficulties for your mind because you can't focus and you can't have concentration. So you like to do just one thing at a time. So for example, if you're washing dishes and your mind's wandering, you would know that with your mindfulness. You'd be aware. And now if you allow that to happen, you could easily cut yourself and end up in the hospital. So instead, cut that off, come back, focus on washing dishes, right? If you're in a business meeting, focus on the business meeting. Maybe you're having a trip to Thailand in 3 months and your mind's wandering and you're daydreaming about this trip to Thailand. Well, that's not going to help you in the business meeting. You've got to focus on the business meeting. So cut off that thought about going to Thailand and come back to the business meeting. You know, there's people that don't understand this, that they try to do multiple things at one time. And because of the natural law of karma, some of those people are actually dead right now, unfortunately. Because if you're walking down the street talking on the phone and you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you could easily walk out into the middle of traffic, whack, and you're dead, right? There's people that have experienced that. That's the natural law of karma. The Buddha is teaching you that what would be wise for you to develop your mind? How is it that you're going to get to peace and joy and a fulfilling and sustaining life? And by doing just one thing at a time, that's what's going to produce this concentration and this focus. One of the ways that I think about it is if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you grind that steel rod back and forth in the wood, it's going to bounce around a lot when you first start because there's no groove yet. But if you grind the steel rod on the wood back and forth, eventually you're going to get a nice groove going. And it's going to pop out occasionally, but you're going to know that and you're going to bring it right back. But if you get this steel rod going long enough, you're going to get such a deep groove that it's never going to pop out. And that's the same thing with your mind. If you practice singleness of mind all day long and you're able to do that more and more, your mind's going to pop around initially. And then when it pops out, you can know that and you can bring it back. But eventually, if you do this long enough, your mind will just always be focused. It'll always be concentrated, right? So you'd like to practice singleness of mind where you're doing just one thing at a time, not allowing your mind to be all over the place, okay? So just as a little recap, and then I'll just see what follow-up questions you guys might have, is right effort is taking the initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to do this. Then you would like to practice right mindfulness, where you have awareness of the mind, that general awareness, but more specifically, you need to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. Then you're going to need to practice right concentration, where you're developing a meditation practice and you're practicing singleness of mind. And you're going to start experiencing the jhanas when you put together all of these teachings from the Eightfold Path. These are enhanced qualities of mind. These are certain phases that your mind goes through. And you'll start to understand what those jhanas are when you learn those in other programs. You'll be able to understand that your mind is in those jhanas. These are preliminary phases that your mind experiences enhanced qualities of mind. So do you guys have any questions on this right effort, right mindfulness, or right concentration, this mental discipline section? Yep. Sounds like it's already on.
I learned not to talk while I'm eating. And so I sit and eat and enjoy my meal. Now I have the problem that when I meet friends and they talk to me or I talk, then I could not eat.
Okay. So the body can do more than one thing at a time, but the mind can only be in one place at a time, right? So like the body can rub the stomach and rub the head. Like these are two different things that the body's doing, but the mind can only be in one place, right? So the body, notice the body is doing something, but my mind is focusing on talking to you, right? That's what I'm doing. I'm very focused on talking to you, but the body is doing something here, which is rubbing the head and rubbing the stomach, right? So you can actually train the mind that the body can chew its food while the mind is focusing on listening to the conversation. You just need to train your mind to be able to do this.
But isn't it an opposite to that you said of the last paper, to do one thing in the moment?
Your mind is doing one thing, right?
Okay.
So if you're washing dishes, right, the mind is focused on washing dishes, but you're actually doing multiple things. You're turning on the water, you're getting the sponge, you're washing the dishes, you're doing the washing of the dishes, but your mind is focused there. That if your mind thinks about going to the grocery store, when you're done washing dishes, you'd like to cut that off. It's not time to think about the grocery store yet. You're just focused on washing the dishes, right? So you'd like your mind to be in one spot. So the body is going to be able to do more than one thing, but the mind's only going to be doing one thing, which is focused on this conversation. So that's what you would like to be able to do. So when you're eating, you can be chewing food and but your mind is focused on the listening to the conversation, if that's what you're choosing to do. In some situations, you're going to eat by yourself and you're just going to be sitting there eating by yourself. In other situations, you're going to be with your friends and you're going to be able to focus on their conversation, but the body's going to be chewing. The mind's not chewing, the body's chewing. Mm-hmm.
That's what I trained.
But if you tried to chew food and talk at the same time, that's where you experience unwholesome gamma. Right? That's where you get choked. That's where some people die because they're choking, right? That's the unwholesome gamma. Right? But when the body's chewing and you're just listening, there's no unwholesome gamma there. You can focus just on the conversation.
Okay, that means if I talk the whole time, it is okay when I did not eat.
If that's what you choose to do, yeah, you could do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
That's your choice. Yeah, so it's not me telling you what's okay and what's not okay. It's me helping you to see the natural law of gamma, that if you're choosing to just sit there and talk and that's all you're doing, you're not causing any harm, right? That's how you can see the truth for yourself. You're not causing harm to material possessions, to physical body, or anybody's reputation. Considering you're using right speech, you're not causing any harm to anybody in that situation. So it's not about me approving what is right or not right, or what is okay or not okay. It's about helping you to see that choice that you just mentioned, there's no harm in that, but you need to be able to see that for yourself. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to end today. I'll just end by thanking you guys for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. I left off the talk about the 3 poisons. That's something that we were going to do today, but I'll fit it into the class at some point. You'll see that we have some extra time towards the end where I'll make sure that we actually talk about that, because you guys will need to understand that. So tomorrow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off teaching you guys. This is today's afternoon. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to start off teaching you loving kindness meditation. And then we're going to do a loving kindness meditation session. Then I'm going to teach you identifying cravings. This is how you can learn how to look within your own mind. You can be introspective and you can see what are the cravings that are actually in your mind. Because I'm going to teach you a method to surgically go in and eliminate them. The Eightfold Path is kind of like a broad brush stroke that you're broadly training your mind generally to let go of all cravings, desires, attachments. But what I'm going to teach you here is how to go in and almost surgically remove them from the mind with a certain technique and a way of doing that. Then I'm going to teach you cultivating healthy mental states, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. This is where the Buddha almost gets the reputation of being like a doctor, because there's certain symptoms in the mind and there's a certain prescription that you apply. But you are your own best doctor. So I'm going to teach you what those symptoms are that you experience now, and I'm going to teach you what the antidote is or what the prescription is, and then you can apply it in your day-to-day life and it'll transform your mind. So whatever you guys choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. All right, we'll see you next time. Sawadee Khap.